Salvete mihi no in Bowen. Today I'm talking about the three following phrases: non compos mentis, non sequitur, and nos ordo seclorum. So let's move to the first slide, and I'm going to be talking about non compos mentis. So the direct Latin translation is not of sound mind. It's a fairly straightforward translation. Um, Here, non means not, compos means in control, and then mentos is obviously genitive mind. So in modern English, this translates to insane. But if we go back to Latin history, believe it or not, this term wasn't actually widely used in Latin conversations, but it was discussed in a lot of Latin literature. So, for example, we see this phrase in Virgil's Aeneid and Plato's Phaedrus. And basically, at this time, they all debated about the definition of being mentally ill or mad. And so Plato actually argued that there were two definitions of mad. One was being medically mad, and then one was being divine mad. Basically, he was trying to establish this dichotomy between the physical and then the spiritual about how people could be mad based on like a physical disability or something like on a spiritual level. Now, to add some more information, during this time, Romans that were considered mad kept all their property but were denied all social positions. Now, believe it or not, even centuries after, we're still arguing about the definition of mad in terms of law. So the significance is in two court cases. Number one, Hellman Commercial Trust and Saving Banks versus Alden, and Smith Haney v. District of Columbia. Essentially, they redefined being mad or non compos mentis as all encompassing, but they did establish that the burden of proof of being mad rested on the individual based on how they were able to handle their legal rights or business rights. Okay, let's move on to the second term, non sequitur. This directly translates to it does not follow. It's a third person singular of a verb that we learned last semester, sequor, sequi, sequitur sum. Some brief history. So this was also not really used in Latin conversation. However, philosophers like Plato were pretty influential. So Plato talked a lot about logic and different truths of the world. And so it's no surprise that in the 1500s, non sequitur became an actual established study of logic. And during this time, non sequitur was defined as basically this impossible conclusion that could have never been the result of the evidence and reasoning that came before it. So, for example, let's use Derek to help define non sequitur. So my example is while I was arguing with Derek about which classical musician is best, he threw in a non sequitur about his favorite book. This is more closely related to the modern definition of non sequitur, which is just plugging in something that doesn't have to do with the context before it. So here's the significance. Today, it's a rhetorical / literary device, and it's shown through Gary Larson's comic, The Far Side, and that's on the right, the image there. And then obviously the image doesn't have any literature, and that goes to show how this term actually, like the different way this term was translated throughout the centuries, because today non sequitur can even be used to refer to images, as it is on the right here. So basically, non sequitur is on the right side is basically the randomness of the animals in this comic. So overall, non sequitur is a comedic tool today. And then if we use a modern perspective on Romulus and Remus, their story with the wolf, you could actually describe that story as involving like a non sequitur with how the wolf was like it was a seemingly random wolf that was taking care of the two children. The last phrase here is novus ordem seclorum. The Latin translation is super straightforward. It's just new order of the ages, and then I have the words listed. So novus, new order, ordo, order, and then seclorum of the ages. I think the history is super interesting. So novus order seclorum comes from Virgil's Eclogues, specifically the fourth poem in 37 BC, where he describes a newborn baby who says magnus ab integro cyclorum nascitur ordo, which is translated to a great order of the ages is born anew. And the reason why this is so influential at the time is that just 3 decades after, Jesus was born and he had huge impacts, right? And so a lot of people thought that Virgil was influenced by God. So the significance is pretty obvious. We have Charles Thomason, a Latin critic, who used this phrase on the Great Seal of the US. This is very similar definition to the Roman meaning. And basically, he was trying to say that when you sign the Declaration of Independence, you're going to have huge implications in the future. And essentially, he was just explaining the importance of that like American government at the time about how it was so revolutionary. So question number one, which author coined the phrase novus ordo seclorum, and in which book did he do this in? The answer is Virgil, Eclogues. And then question two, how were mad people treated in Roman society? The answer is they kept their property but were restricted from social positions.